Next thing we're going to talk about is scuba diving and some life-saving tips. Scuba diving is a very fun and exhilarating experience that allows you to explore and really open your eyes to different parts of the world that many people don't get to see. And so it can really be a very complex hobby that requires a good knowledge base and also a lot of training from quality courses and experiences. Without this training, the activity of scuba diving can be more dangerous. And so you really want to make sure you get a quality course, good training, and good experience scuba diving. There's definitely countless stories of people who in training courses almost die learning how to scuba dive, or even die after learning how to scuba dive, doing a dive that was a little bit more dangerous and, above their experience level. As a past NOAA professional advanced open ocean scuba diver, I do have a pretty good background in scuba diving. I do think scuba diving is very complex and there's always something more to learn. There's always a lot more to do and learn in most anything in life. I'm also experienced at swimming competitively, and I was a NOAA scuba diver, but also a rescue swimmer as well. We did a lot of small boat related evolutions, and I was a coxswain, fast rescue boats. I did have different certifications in, fall protection and climbing, but also was in the Coast Guard. And so I just have a lot of background in water and safety and swimming and scuba. And so that's what I'll kind of be speaking to a little bit, is some tips that I kind of learned along the way, in hopes of really helping you, do scuba diving in a safer way. And so, my background is a little bit heavier in safety, firefighting, chemical spills, emergency response, rescue swimming, scuba diving, climbing, confined spaces, search and rescue, and just a bunch of other things, small boats, and stuff like that. And so I'm really gonna just dive into it now. So this article that I wrote on Medium about scuba diving is mostly about, things I've learned along the way and based on research as well. And so here we're going to talk about it on YouTube. You'll find a lot of very helpful, life-saving information, regardless of whether you're a newbie or a seasoned diver. It is always helpful to review and remind yourself of life-saving tips, so I think that the below tips will be helpful to really anybody, either as a reminder for seasoned swimmers and divers, or as just a tip that you'd like to know up front when you're starting diving for the first time. And so here are some scuba diving tips. Prior to the dive, assess your circumstances. Are you sleep deprived? Are you hydrated? Have you been drinking water? Did you eat food today? Are you stressed, overwhelmed, task loaded, or overworked? Do you have a dive buddy? Have you dived with your dive buddy before, or, a few times or a lot of times? How many times have you dove with your dive buddy? What is the weather and the environmental conditions that you're gonna have to dive in? What depth are you diving in? Are you using certain equipment that you really don't know how to use it, you've never used it before, or is the equipment something that you're used to and experienced at using? Are you diving in, warmer water or cold water? Because the temperature of the water will affect your dive and your buoyancy and other factors. What depths are you experienced at diving? Are you diving in your comfort zone or outside of your comfort zone? Have you ever been narked? Are you susceptible to having issues underwater or getting narked? So being narked is, an effect that causes your body to kind of seem drunk underwater due to the pressure that you are at. And so normally there are individuals who are a little bit more susceptible to being narked. And when you go deeper and deeper, you'll notice that certain individuals will start kind of acting weird and almost drunken, and this is because the pressure is impacting their body a certain way, and then you can really lose your ability to function as intelligently, and it becomes a big safety issue. And so if you've ever gotten narked, or if you're susceptible to being narked, or if you've never gotten narked before and you have no idea what that is, definitely keep an eye out for your ability to react and respond. If that is changing, if you're not being as receptive and observant or able to function, that is the time when you need to go to the surface again. Because if you go deeper, when you are narked, the impacts will only increase. And so, if you start noticing these weird things about yourself or others, definitely at that moment make the decision to end the dive and start returning to the surface. Prior to the dive, you will also want to assess your circumstances related to have you been flying for the past 48 hours? Flying before a dive or after a dive is never recommended. And then also, have you been drinking alcohol? You do not want to drink alcohol within 48 hours of diving. Drinking alcohol will not just affect your body and its functions, but it'll also dehydrate you. And so there's multiple ways that drinking alcohol can increase how unsafe the dive will be. Prior to diving, also consider, is there a current that you're going to have to contend with? Are the waters rough? Is the sea state high? What kind of water conditions are you going to be diving in? Will visibility be an issue? Also check and maintain your equipment. Ensure that your tank is full and your regulator is functioning properly. Is this a working dive with added complexity or a recreational dive that you are simply enjoying? Because if the dive has added working related labor that you have to do while you're diving, that complexity can add a little bit more danger to the evolution. But if you're just doing a recreational dive and just doing it for fun, the dive is going to be a little bit easier and less complex. And so you should really consider, what is the complexity of your dive prior to diving? Prior to diving, do you have extra equipment to maintain both before or during the dive? For example, do you have a light? Do you have line? Do you have a dive buoy, signal marker, buoys, or a camera or a GoPro? The more equipment that you have to maintain, the more complex the evolution. And if you have to maintain this equipment during the dive, it makes the evolution a little bit more complex and potentially less safe as well. And then you also have to consider this equipment will have a certain weight and buoyancy. And so you need to consider the buoyancy of the equipment itself. Will you need to maintain extra weight to weigh down and ensure that the equipment is neutrally buoyant so that it doesn't throw off your own personal buoyancy during the dive? So it's definitely very recommended to use dive flags when you're diving, and make sure that you're making it very obvious that a dive is going on when you're around boaters. So definitely use your dive flags and your buoys for open ocean or areas that have boats. Just because you don't want a boat to go overhead when you are diving below. It can be very dangerous, and you definitely want to stay alert around boats. Also consider, do you have a dive knife or a compass for navigation, especially during emergencies? It's definitely wise to have a knife with you. If you get entangled in something, the knife will help you get yourself out or get your buddy out. And, if you get lost, the compass will help you find your way back to shore or back to the boat. So both of these items are life-saving items that you'll definitely want to consider having on you, especially for, emergencies, but not just that, maintain them in every dive. Just maintain them in your pocket. They're really tiny, or latch them onto your leg. They're not going to take up that much space, and it's really better to have them and not use them than to not have them when you need them. And so the next one, do be sure to have a dive watch if you're able to get one. They're very helpful. They'll give you added information, and they'll definitely help you underwater by, for example, sometimes your dive watches will give you information as you're descending and ascending, and so it will really help you ensure that you are ascending and descending at the proper rate. If you are descending and ascending in the water column at an improper rate, it can be pretty dangerous. And so your dive watch can track your bottom time, which is how long you've been on the bottom. It can track how long your dive has been. It can track your total maximum depth, so that when you're underwater, you can consider, how deep have you gone? And based on that, should you end your dive early? And then when you're ending your dive, are you ascending to the surface at a safe rate? And so you really want to be cautious and careful about all these different things when you're diving, and your dive watch is a great piece of technology that can be life-saving, but also really affect the safety of a dive. It can really enhance the safety of the dive and really maintain improved accountability for ensuring that you're doing all the right things during your dive. So also consider, prior to diving, have you performed repetitive dives already? What were the depths of these dives, and what were your time on bottom? So if you've already done competitive dives already, you will definitely want to consider that prior to diving on your future dives as well. You may want to end your dives early if this is a repetitive dive. You may want to go less deep, because repetitive dives will lead to an increase of impact to your body. So you do not want to dive more than 3 times in one day. And if the dive is a repetitive dive, you'll definitely want to consider the bottom time, the depth that you're diving, and how long you were underwater, under pressure, because the more that you're diving and the longer you're diving and the depths that you're diving will really increase the impact on your body, and you really want to ensure that you're diving safely. And repetitive dives are usually the dives where you got to pay a little bit extra attention and especially follow your dive charts when you are planning for a repetitive dive. Prior to diving, also discuss your dive plan. Consider how many people are diving, what are their experience levels, who are the dive masters, who is leading the dive, how much experience does your dive master or the leaders have, how much experience do the newer divers have. Understand the capabilities of the team that you're diving with. Understand their experience and understand the equipment that they are wearing on them, because in an emergency you're going to have to respond to emergencies, and it's better to understand the equipment that everybody is using. Ideally you're all using the same equipment, but it's definitely helpful in an emergency to understand what equipment everybody has. That way, for example, if you're underwater and somebody gets stuck and you don't have a knife, but Bob has a knife, then somebody could go get help and grab Bob's knife. But if nobody knows what everybody has, then you can't really respond as effectively in an emergency. And underwater, time is very important. So you want to know what equipment your team has prior to making the dive. Always follow your dive master and the leaders who are leading the dive. You will want to maintain a safe distance between yourself and your dive master, and really listen to their discussion prior to the dive, after the dive, and also during the dive. They may give you signals during the dive, and you will want to pay attention to the dive master and to the leaders that are leading the dive. That is how you stay the safest. Maintain a proper distance from the dive master, and just pay attention at all times to what the surroundings are and what everyone is doing around you. Really always be aware of what your dive buddy is doing and what your dive master is doing. Be aware of where they are and any signals they may be throwing your way, and just be aware and diligent when you're underwater. What is your planned maxed depth, time on bottom, and total dive time? It is definitely important to know these things prior to diving. Plan your depth and your duration and your decompression stops prior to diving. Understand who is your buddy. What path will you be taking when you're underwater? Is there marine life that, may exist in the area that you're diving? And be especially aware of the marine life that is toxic or dangerous or unsafe in some way. For example, be aware if there are sea urchins, sharks, octopus, barracuda, certain sea stars, rays, stonefish, lionfish, or other marine life that can cause you irreparable permanent damage or harm or injury or death. So be aware of these different things, be aware of the dangers, be aware of the marine life that can be dangerous. What are the environmental conditions that you expect? Be aware of them prior to diving. Review and compare your plan to the dive tables charts. Definitely review the dive tables and go over them with your dive master prior to diving. Also, know your hand signals. They will be utilized throughout the dive, and it's important that you ask the dive master what dive signals you should be aware of prior to making the dive. That way, during an emergency, you will know what signals will be utilized, and you'll know how to communicate with your dive master and your team. Also know the safety concerns that may exist for this specific dive. And so, in summary, those were all pre-dive, assessing your circumstances prior to the dive. These were all safety tips before you dive, things that you should have considered. And yes, there were actually a lot of them because I'm a very detailed person. Now, next, we're going to go into actually diving. And so these are going to be tips that you should acknowledge while you're diving. And so, first and foremost, be careful. Injuries tend to occur when you fail to plan your dive and dive your plan. So, avoid changing plans during a dive. For instance, there are definitely examples of people who will go diving and say, oh, let's go deeper, let's go this way, let's go that way. But in reality, that was never the plan. They want to go explore a place that they have never been and exceed the recommended depth that they were planning to go, or exceed the time frame that they were planning on diving. It is never recommended for you to explore areas that you never planned to explore. It is never recommended to change your plans, because that's when things happen usually, is like when you're not diving your plan, you're more apt to have an emergency, and it's just better to just plan your dive and then dive your plan. Also, maintain an awareness of your air supply and don't touch things underwater, because you never know if that will cause you injury or harm or irreparable damage to your body or even death. So, be cautious of your air supply and don't touch different things underwater, especially if you don't know what can be impactful. The next tip is to only dive within your training, certifications, and experience level. Don't attempt deep dives, working dives, or technical dives without proper training and certifications. Similarly, there are a lot of people who die diving in caves. So if you have never dived in a cave before and you don't have dive cave experience or certifications, then don't dive in a cave. Diving in a cave is definitely different than diving in open ocean, and so don't dive in a cave without the proper certifications and training. Next, for diving tips, always dive with a buddy. I prefer always diving with someone more experienced than myself. That way, I am in the best possible situation within emergencies, but also in the best situation to learn something new within each dive. And so I already summarized that I do have extra experience that most people don't get to experience. I got to work for NOAA and become a professional scuba diver with certifications that, normally people will take like a few days to get their certifications. I spent weeks going to a dive school, and I spent a week going to rescue swimmer school. I spent several days becoming climber certified, and several days getting confined space certified, and I think it was probably at least a week for small boat certifications. And I've spent months and months of my life doing drills on search and rescue and abandoning a ship and chemical spills or spill response or fire drills. And so I have all this safety related experience, and even all of this experience that I have, done for working dives or just normal dives, I will still not dive with someone less experienced than myself. There will be someone more experienced than myself, or kind of like a relationship. You will find people in life that will balance you out. You may have experience in this type of thing or this certain way, but in reality, there are other people in this world with a lot of experience who can balance out the experience that you have. I may have a lot of experience in a lot of different certain things, but there are people in this world who know things that I don't know, and I would rather dive with the people that have all of this experience and be more experienced than myself. I really don't care how experienced I am. I want to dive with someone more experienced than myself, because that is how I can be the safest within each dive. And then that's also how I can learn the most within each dive and be the best buddy for the people around me. So I think that I'm a good dive buddy, but I can only be the best dive buddy I can be if I'm, always learning and always getting more experience and always getting more certifications and always really learning, because diving is challenging and you really want to stay on your toes, stay safety conscious, and always maintain your certifications and build on your certifications, get more certifications, and really, remind yourself of safety tips, but always be focused on just doing your best and maintaining the certifications that you have and maintaining a safety conscious focus. You should always dive with a safety buddy, and definitely try to dive only with buddies that are more experienced than yourself. That is the best way to go. And you might bump into people who are like, well, I can't find a dive buddy like that who's really experienced. But the reality is, they are out there. There are so many people in this world. You just need to find them. There are a lot of people in this world more experienced than yourself, and I really don't care how experienced you think you are. There will be someone who at least has more experience than you in certain aspects of diving, and you should definitely find these people who can balance out your knowledge base and maybe teach you something new, because everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. And so, if you have a strength in this, then find someone who has a strength in that. And definitely try to focus on diving with people that are experts and experienced. And if you can't find someone who's an expert, definitely make sure that your dive master is an expert. Make sure your dive master knows the area. You don't want to dive in an area and have nobody know the area. The dive master and the person leading the dive should definitely understand the location, the marine life, and the different situations that may occur when you're diving in that location. So, definitely find a dive buddy that is experienced. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm never going to dive when I don't have an experienced dive buddy, but I will say that I have never dove without, diving with someone experienced. I've never done a dive by myself, and always when I dive, the other person is very experienced. And they may not have my experience, but why would you want to dive with someone who's just like you? In reality, it is perfectly amazing to have dived with someone who balances out your own experience, because in an emergency, diversity does help. If I'm a good communicator in an emergency, but this person is really good at that, together we can do amazing things. And the same thing goes for diving. Balance out the experience on the team, diversify it, make sure that you have a great team when you're diving. It will definitely save lives, and it'll definitely allow each diver to learn the most and be the best diver that they can be. When you surround yourself with experts, you will become an expert even faster and easier, and you also dive safer. So surround yourself with experts. Find yourself a good dive buddy that you can really rely on. And ideally, you want to build your experience with the divers that you're diving with. If you've never dove with someone before, you're at a disadvantage. You definitely want to learn how the people around you are and who they are and what their experience is. Get to know your team, because when you know your team and the equipment that they're using, the dive itself is safer. Next one. Keep an eye on your surroundings, including other divers, boats, the depth, nearby, marine life, or the surroundings itself, like the coral, the seafloor, etc. Avoid touching or disturbing the marine life and also the environment around you. If you, for example, are touching the seafloor, you're going to disturb it, and you may impact the visibility by putting sediment and dirt into the water, and so you won't be able to see as well. So you definitely want to avoid touching and disturbing really anything, including the bottom or the coral or the walls, if there are any. And next tip, while diving, be very aware of your air levels, your depth, your rate of ascent and descent. Your dive buddy, be aware of the dive master. Don't stray too far from others. They are your safety net. When things go wrong, the closer you are to your dive buddies and your dive master, the safer you will be, and the better you are able to respond in an emergency or be safe in an emergency. If you pass out for some random reason, somebody is more apt to notice if you are near someone or if your dive buddy is nearby. But if you wander away and something happens, it will just take a lot longer for them to respond, even if they notice. And so you want to be near your dive buddy at all times, and you don't want to stray too far from your dive master. So monitor your air supply and definitely communicate the amounts of air that you have with your dive buddy and dive master regularly. Always ascend and descend slowly at the proper rates, and follow the recommended decompression stops to avoid decompression sickness. Stay calm in emergencies. It will definitely help you perform emergency actions most effectively if you are calm. You will definitely receive the best outcomes if you are calm in emergencies. Really allow yourself to think, breathe, and make the best decisions during your emergencies. Stay calm and just do your best. And definitely in an emergency, you'll want to notify the leaders, like the dive master, as soon as possible, and really assess the situation and let them take care of the emergency. The dive master is supposed to be there to respond to emergencies, so definitely notify the dive master as soon as possible. Next tip is to, really learn how to mostly rely on your feet and your legs for getting from one location to another while you're diving. Really relax your arms when diving and try not to use them very much. This will really allow you to be better able to perform in emergencies, because, when you rely on your arms for swimming, then in an emergency, you're not going to have your arms. You're going to want to use your arms in the emergency instead of using them for swimming. And so try to practice maintaining your buoyancy and swimming and kicking without your arms, and just rest your arms and relax your arms while you dive. That way you will look like a pro, but also you will be better able to respond in emergencies because you won't have to rely on your arms for swimming. Instead, your kick is what you use for getting from place to place. And then your arms will be open to respond to the emergency when the emergency happens. So when you're scuba diving, you should not be traveling using your arms to swim. Instead, you should be swimming based on your kick. Your kick is what gets you from A to B, not your arms. We definitely did talk about this above, but I'm just going to elaborate and further clarify that we definitely do want to dive with an experienced, reliable, and safety-focused team. You may get a dive master who does ridiculously unsafe things for show. For example, I saw someone play with a crown of thorns Sea Star. This instructor of 20 plus years was leading not by example. He was doing something very unsafe and not setting a good example. If the divers on that dive approached one and touched it themselves, they would have deformed their body limbs for the rest of their life, causing irreparable impact to their life and limbs. And so when you are a dive master, you should not be doing ridiculous things that are unsafe and setting a bad example for divers. You never know if someone else will see what you're doing, copy it, and then cause themselves an injury or harm. So, as I noted, a individual dive master of 20 plus years did this in front of my eyes, and all I can think was, what the heck? Like, are you kidding me? Don't do ridiculous things. Don't touch things underwater, and don't dive with instructors like this. Don't copy people that are not safety conscious. The second that I observed that, I knew from then on that I should not dive with this individual. I should not pay this individual to take me on dives, and I should definitely not, follow or learn from this individual because they're really not doing the best practices. I'll probably learn really bad things from them. I'm not going to learn anything helpful, that's for sure. So you definitely don't want to touch marine life, especially if you don't know what they are. And even if somebody else touches something, that does not mean that you should touch it too. Definitely don't touch things underwater. It's not good. There's a lot of organisms underwater, and scientifically, as a individual with a background in marine environmental science and who worked for NOAA collecting scientific data on the atmosphere, ocean, marine bio, fisheries, and just all these different things, the ocean is heavily not explored enough, and we have a lot of organisms in the ocean that will cause us humans harm. And so you really want to, really respect the ocean and appreciate it for its complexity and the things inside the ocean. There are so many things that can harm us, so you really just want to enjoy the dive with your eyes and explore with your eyes. And don't touch anything. Don't touch the seafloor to disturb it. Don't touch the walls of a cave. Don't touch the different fishes or coral. Don't touch anything. Just stay in the water column and swim. Now, as you get more experienced and you get to know what everything is, you can strategically touch certain things, but in general, in life, you should definitely start out your swimming career not touching anything, and then with time, you can strategically touch certain things that you know are safe, but you don't touch anything until you know it is safe. And so, as I was saying, this instructor made a choice to touch something that he shouldn't be playing with, and he was literally playing with it. His choice could definitely lead to a new diver touching it unknowingly and causing themselves irreparable, irreversible life damage to their limbs that they will carry for the rest of their life. And so no instructor and no person should be doing these kind of things. It is not recommended that you dive with people that do stupid things. Dive with people that are safety conscious. Dive with people who are intelligent and experienced, but also safety conscious. And things that are unsafe, they should really be aware of these things. And you want to dive with people who are safety conscious within their dives. They don't really do things that foster other people getting hurt. You don't want to dive with selfish people. Instead, you want to dive with selfless people that really care about the team and the well-being of everyone on the team. When I dive, I am looking out for everyone. And when you're diving, you're going to want to be with selfless people. By their personality as being selfless, they will put you first, they will put your life first, and when you're in emergency, they will do everything they can to ensure that you're safe and you survive and you have the least amount of injuries during that emergency. You want to be around someone who cares, is selfless, and will do everything they can to ensure that you are safe. If you are around someone who is selfish, and that's your dive buddy, you're not really going into your dive in a very smart way. Choose a better dive buddy. Choose someone selfless, choose someone caring, choose someone safety related, safety focused. So next we have tips about post-dive, so after dive tips. This video is almost over, I swear. So post-dive, you'll definitely want to rinse off, maintain, and care for your scuba diving equipment. This is because your scuba diving equipment is safety equipment. You rely on it for your safety and your wellness and your health and your life. Your life relies on the equipment, so take care of it, rinse it off, and really maintenance your equipment after every dive. When you have a long day of repetitive dives or deep depth dives, definitely keep aware of you and your buddy's emotional and physical condition. You definitely can experience post-dive life-threatening issues within the following 24 hours. So it is definitely good practice to check on each other, even if via a quick call or text. Within 24 hours of your dive, you can have like a decompression sickness from diving deeper, or just if you're not used to diving. You may not have to dive that deep, but because your body is not used to diving, you may get hit with an impact that's life-threatening that you just didn't expect. And so usually these impacts are associated with ascending and descending at an improper rate. If you go diving and you're going up and down in the water column, yes, this is my environmental background coming out, the words, But anyway, if you're going up and down in the water column too fast, and then, the bubbles in your body will expand and contract at an improper rate, and these things will cause you health impacts and decompression sickness, and you may have to go to a decompression chamber And if you don't go to the chamber and, really take care of this emergency, you can have your life impacted or threatened. And so it's really important for you and your dive buddies, especially when you're doing deeper dives or repetitive dives, to really just be aware of each other. Send each other a text, be like, hey, how are you? How are you feeling after the dive? And then check in on the person, in the morning or just before bed. And really just, be aware of each other post dive. Be aware of anything abnormal that occurs, because following the dive, even the night after the dive, you can still have life-threatening impacts. And so you really want to just keep an eye on each other, as a friend and as a buddy. Just say hi and be like, you don't have to be super obvious about it. You could just be like, hey, how you doing? How you feeling after the dive? Are you tired? Like, I'll see you in the morning. Let's go for breakfast, and, you could always be really, cool about it. But yeah, you should definitely maintain conversations with your dive team post-dive, ideally, especially when the dives are more complex, deeper, or repetitive. So the next tip is do not fly on a plane for the next 24 hours after you dive. This is because you just went diving to a very deep depth or a depth in general, and that affected your body in a certain way. And now if you go flying, you're going to go up in elevation, and the opposite pressure will affect your body in the opposite way. And so in reality, it is very bad idea to go diving and then immediately after, within the next 48 hours, go flying in an airplane. You should not be doing that. It is not recommended. It is not wise, because it will potentially have life-threatening or unsafe impacts to your body. So definitely be safe, be strategic, and, be careful of who you dive with. The most important thing for you to do is, just do your best, have safe practices, choose your team wisely, and really plan for things, and really get your trainings, get your certifications, and then, obviously enjoy the experience. Diving is amazing. It's super fun. Hopefully we can have some fun videos posted after this one, because this was a pretty good doozy. But really, enjoy diving. Enjoy the adventure. Diving is amazing. It's priceless. Most people don't get to see and experience things in the way that you get to experience them in a dive. But definitely be safe when you're diving. So have fun, enjoy the dive, and feel free to comment below if you have any thoughts, questions, and maybe one day we can do a Q&A to basically discuss all of this, because it's a lot of information, I know. Just do your best to implement everything to the best of your ability, and in life, that's all you can do. And if you surround yourself with experts and a really good team, then technically you're going to be way better off than a lot of people who are diving. So, surround yourself with experts and just have fun.